What is happening, sports fans? It's your main man, Matt, from the DFS 5 Pack. I'm rocking it solo. It's a great day. It's Thursday, April 7th, opening day at MLB. Man, I'm excited to get on here and talk some baseball. It's been a minute. We don't have any early slates today, which sucks, but we have one main slate which starts at 4:05 Eastern. Really hyped to get on here and talk some MLB with you guys. NBA's been fun. Last night I had a brutal 2-for-2 swap that absolutely killed me. Couldn't decide between JaVale McGee and Porzingis, JaVale McGee and Levine, or Biyombo and Porzingis. I ultimately end up going with the McGee side. Cost me a ton of money. That is one of the worst parts of DFS. I should have played both lineups, but what can you do? I'm going to get it back today in baseball anyway, so who cares? We got 6 games because the Minnesota-Seattle game was PPD'd. So 6 games to talk over, some good pitching options. I'm just excited to get on here and talk some baseball. And going through the NBA slate position by position yesterday was almost like an appetizer for today, if you will, because in baseball we do it by position anyways. So yeah, before I get into the baseball, we're promoting a new site called ABC Islands. The link and the promo code will be in the description section. I know a bunch of people have signed up and they're really liking it. So again, check it out. Let me know what you think. Would really appreciate everyone who goes and checks out ABC Islands. With that said, let's talk this slate out. We got 6 games, like I said. 2 early, only 1 at 7, which is weird. And then a couple late games. So I think there's a few different spots to go, and I'm excited to get after it and get back into the swing of things, if you will. Let me share this screen. All right, so as far as pitching options go, some good ones for sure. Darvish looked real good in Arizona. He was not great to finish the year last year. He was much better at the beginning of the year. I like him a lot to bounce back, so I'm a big Darvish fan. I like him quite a bit. The pitching is cheap. A lot of the offense is more expensive, so something to note. I never mind spending up for pitching, though. There's always cheap bats I can find. I like Darvish quite a bit here. High on my short list for sure in all formats. I see no reason why he wouldn't be. Max Fried, coming off a really good year. He's named the Braves opening day starter, which tells you all you need to know. Not the greatest matchup in the world against the Reds, but not an awful matchup either. Let's look and see what the Reds' projected lineup is supposed to be today. All right. India, Pham, Votto, Stevenson, Moustakas, Senzel, Naquin, Aquino, Farmer. I mean, it's not like amazing, but it's also not like the worst lineup ever, especially the top 6. Power at the bottom. I like Fried. I'm just not sure I get to Fried sandwiched between Bieber and Darvish, who I mean, Bieber's the man. He wasn't amazing towards the end of the year last year. Actually, he got hit around a little bit, and he's gotten hit a little bit this spring. He's way too cheap. He's going to be really popular, as he should be. Let me pull up the ownership real quick. Yeah, he's going to be the highest owned pitcher. I mean, he's coming in 50% owned. So depending on what contests you guys are playing, higher dollar, smaller entry type tournaments, he will be chalk. So I never mind using a chalk pitcher when I like him, and that's probably the situation here. I don't hate the fade, though, in tournaments, just given the fact that this isn't the Shane Bieber that's like the unanimous Cy Young Award winner. He still needs to prove himself a little bit. So, yeah. I mean, he looks great on paper. The Royals lineup does not scare me. I know that they're going to be better this year, especially with Bobby Witt in there. You got a lineup of Whit Merrifield, Bobby Witt, Benintendi, Sal Perez, Carlos Santana, Hunter Dozier, Alberto Mondesi, Michael Taylor, and Nicky Lopez. That's solid. I mean, it's not like an easy matchup for Bieber, let's pull up how the Royals have hit him in the past, even though I don't really care about that. I just want to check it out. And just so everyone knows, just because it's opening day, I'm making this video free to the public. But tomorrow it's going to be members only video and public videos back to normal. All right, something's wrong with that. All right, I'll pull that up afterwards. After Bieber, we get Framber Valdez. I assume he's going to be really long. I can't imagine many people go there who. He's interesting here. Again, it's not like the greatest spot in the world against the Angels, but it's not a bad spot either, considering the context of the slate. Their lineup's solid. I mean, Ohtani, Duffy, Trout, Rendon, Walsh, Stassi, Adele, Marsh, and Fletcher. We'll see if that's the lineup they're running out there today, but something similar to that. I think he's definitely sneaky in tournaments. You don't feel great about him on paper. Excuse me, and that's why he'll be low owned. Tyler Mahle's interesting. He's a guy that's much better on the road than he is at home. So at first you're like in Atlanta, no interest. And I'm like looking at it. I think Bieber looks better on paper, but it's not going to be like crazy to me if Mahle, pitches a gem here and outscores Bieber. That said, I probably like the Atlanta offense at lower ownership more than I like Mahle. Looks like both sides are offering some leverage, which is always interesting to me. With neither Mahle or the Braves getting any love, it's interesting just because they're both good, and that's why they're not getting love, because people don't really want to pick on Mahle. People will definitely don't want to pick on the Braves offense, so they're just kind of washing it out. Tournament play. Tyler McGill, crazy that he's starting opening day for the Mets. I'm not interested here in 76 when you got the guys like that are basically at the same price point. Waino. Always like him better at home. Opening day against like a weak Pirates lineup. Yeah, he looks fine here. He's getting love. Looks like ownership is coming in between Bieber, Fried, Darvish, and Wainwright with Net and Ohtani also. Ohtani's so cheap. I get that. Brubaker not getting any love. It's hard to plant your flag there. I'll say that. No question about that. That said, like, decent spring. I mean, if I were playing a bunch of lineups, I'd definitely have Brubaker. I'm playing 3 lineups. I'll probably use 3 different pitchers. I don't think Brubaker will make it. He's going to be so much less owned than Wainwright, though. It's interesting. I also don't hate the idea of pairing the pitchers in this game. I think you can do that in a couple spots. So, yeah, I get why Wainwright's getting love, and he looks solid here, especially in cash games. But Brubaker is kind of the tournament pivot. Ohtani, leadoff hitter, and he's a starting pitcher tonight. Just crazy. Houston's lineup is definitely weaker now, with no Correa. That said, it's still not like a lineup I'm excited about picking on at all. Altuve, Tucker, Bregman, Alvarez, Gurriel, Brantley, McCormick, Jeremy Pena, and Maldonado. I mean, listen, there's some strikeouts towards the bottom of that lineup, but this is not a lineup that strikes out. I understand why Ohtani's getting love, because he's just way too cheap for his upside. He's a guy that can strike out 10, even again in a matchup that doesn't seem optimal on paper. I think that he's wildly in play in all formats. I also think the Houston offense is in play in tournaments, as they're not getting any love. And Ohtani, we've seen, he can get wild. And if you get him out of the game, the Angels bullpen always sucks. So I have no reason to believe. Sure, it might be a little bit better this year. I know they got Iglesias from Cincinnati, but I'll always take my chances against the Angels pen until they prove me otherwise. So I think Ohtani is wildly in play with the love he's getting. I think I do like him more in cash games, but it's hard to ignore that price tag in all formats today. Just he's so cheap for his upside. So yeah, for me, he doesn't necessarily stand out over like the Malleys of the world, but I certainly think that on his best day, he's way too cheap and probably, right up there with Darvish and Bieber and Fried as the top pitchers overall in the slate. Corbin and Bumgarner. Wouldn't be surprised at basically any outcome with these guys. I wouldn't be surprised if both of them sucked and they got lit up hard. I know the Padres are getting a ton of love here. So are the Mets. I wouldn't be surprised if either of these guys or both of these guys pitched well. I mean, they're both – Bumgarner's a Hall of Famer. Corbin's a very good pitcher. Not a Hall of Fame pitcher, but he was a very good pitcher. Helped win them a World Series. Did he help win them a World Series or did he sign after? I think he did. Check that out. Yeah, he was the winning pitcher in Game 7, so he definitely pitched in it. You got to be ballsy to take your shot on either of these guys here, but I don't think I'm as excited about the opposing offenses as the masses are. Probably that's just my contrarian mentality, but that's how I see it. Greinke returning to Kansas City. I wonder if he's going to get any love here. I doubt it, just because while he's so cheap, Ohtani's so cheap, Bieber's so cheap. You just don't need it. This is another one. I don't hate both sides of this. Like Greinke, if he's really not going to get any love, flip it around. The Indians bats if they're not going to get any love. And it looks like this is a spot where neither side's getting much love, which intrigues me for sure. It does look like the Cleveland bats are getting more love than Greinke, which makes sense. Speaking of bats, let's hop on to it. Need 1 second, guys. All right, sorry about that. I'm back with me. What would me making a video be without my wife bothering and calling me? It just wouldn't be. So glad we got that out of the way. Don't worry, she's not watching, so don't have to worry about that. All right, let's talk about some bats. So as far as catcher goes, I mean, Perez is the best catcher on the board by a mile, but he's also in a tough spot against Bieber. See how much love the Royals are getting here. Not a lot, as nor should they be, but their lineup's good. Bieber's been a little bit hit or miss. Like, if I were stacking the Royals, I'd certainly have Perez in there. Other than that, I mean, if you have money and want to use him as a one-off to your thing, but he's not like a priority piece for me here. Molina, if you're stacking the Cards, looks good. Check one thing real quick. As far as ownership goes, pretty sure it's going to be James McCann, but let me check. Yeah, it looks like McCann and Varsho are getting by far the most. Varsho, McCann, and Austin Nola. So those are the guys that are getting the most love, and it makes sense. If you're stacking the Angels, Stassi, Stevenson, same thing with the Reds. Varsho against Darvish. He's leading off and he's a catcher, so I get why he's getting love. He's 5 for 26 with 3 bombs. I mean, he's a good hitter. This guy has come up and been a good hitter like throughout his minor league career, shown flashes of it at the big league level. I completely understand why he's getting love as, like, I guess, I don't think people are stacking San Diego here. Let me check real quick, though. Or stacking Arizona. They are using Arizona a little bit. I'm not interested in the Arizona stack, really. I get why Varsho's getting love. I mean, leading off, and I always like Ketel Marte, but I like Darvish more than I like the Arizona stack. That's for damn sure. I think Alfaro is interesting with Austin Nola getting a ton of love. Nola's the better hitter, looks better on paper. If you're playing a cash game, I think Nola is definitely the way to go if you're not using Varsho or McCann. But in tournaments, if you're stacking the Padres, that's a nice way to get different, or use both of them, assuming they're both in the lineup. So again, different ways to get different within popular stacks, as I talk about. James McCann, always good against lefties. He looks good here at 2,700. If you're stacking the Mets, even as just a cheap one-off, he looks like probably the best play on paper at catcher, but it's not like the other guys are like expensive, Austin Nola and Varsho. So I think all 3 of those guys you're looking at in cash games, all of them are wildly in playing tournaments if you're not using, the guy from a team you stack. All right, 1B. So I talked about Atlanta and Mally. If I were stacking Atlanta, I would definitely be using Matt Olson. I'm an Olson fan. He's awesome. I think he's going to pick right up where he left off in Oakland. He's in a better hitter's park now by a mile, and I think he's going to have a monster year. So hard to get him as like a one-off. He's so expensive, but I do like him a lot. And if I'm stacking Atlanta, I definitely want him. And I do like him as a one-off. I could see myself not stacking Atlanta, but using Olson as a one-off. Goldie, if you're stacking St. Louis, he's a little bit too rich for my blood. Votto, hard to get to against Fried. I think Pete Alonso will presumably be chalky here. That makes sense. Let's see. Yeah, Alonso's coming in with high ownership. Looks like Alonso and then Luke Voigt. All these other guys work in stacks. Like, I think the Washington stack is potentially going to be a little bit underowned. And I'm interested in that if that's the case. Looking at a guy like Josh Bell, if you're using the Angels, Jared Walsh, although I'm not sure where he'll be in the lineup against the lefty. All these guys are sneaky, though, wherever the ownership is not going. Bobby Bradley in a Cleveland stack. I can't get to Pujols. Christian Walker's had a really good spring, and he's really cheap. So I guess Arizona is a stack you could look at if you're trying to like spend up at pitching. But the problem is, guys, I like my favorite spend up pitcher is Darvish. He's the only spend up pitcher, so kind of self-deprecating in that regard. I don't know. It's interesting. I like Darvish, but I'm not going to be shocked if he gets hit around a little bit. I mean, we've read this book before. I remember a day slate towards the end of last year. Darvish got absolutely lit up by Arizona when Darvish was popular. So it's not like it hasn't happened before. I'm more on Team Darvish tonight, though. Second base, Houston's not going to get any love here. And I know they're in a tough spot against Ohtani, but man, this lineup, whenever they're not going to get any love, interests me. So It's hard to get there, though. You're probably going to have to use, especially if you use like Darvish and Bieber, you're going to have to get different with it. Maybe use Pena. Yeah, he's 2,300, so they got some cheap pieces. But I like Altuve a lot if you're stacking Houston. India's probably too cheap at 4,800 for his power. Free just doesn't give up a lot of home runs, though. That's the problem. Ketel Marte's too cheap. We know he's got big-time power speed upside. If you're not using Darvish or if you're thinking about using a bunch of Arizona, he'd be right at the top of the list. Oh, yeah, we've got looks like Cronenworth is getting a bunch of love. I mean, people want to pick on Bumgarner and they want San Diego. He's very affordable, so I get that. Cesar Hernandez potentially leading off for the Nats. I can dig that for sure. Nice cheap piece leading off. Definitely can get on board there. Sweet. And I guess Matt Duffy also, if he's like batting second, has he been? It's a platoon for him. I don't even want to bring him up. Cesar Hernandez looks like the cheap piece, and then some really nice like mid-range options here. Altuve's an optimal guy in tournaments if you're stacking Houston. All right, third base. So Machado is the overwhelming chalky third baseman. He's affordable at 4,800. Great spot against Bumgarner. I get it. Fade him at your own risk in tournaments. But there's plenty of other good third basemen on this slate. J. Ram, who just signed a new deal to stay in Cleveland, which is awesome. Arenado, if you're stacking the cards. Austin Riley. I mean, he's not going to get any love. My preference here is Bregman. I think Bregman bounces back this year. I like Houston as a sneaky tournament stack. They're going to get zero love, and that's just the reason for liking them. It's not that Ohtani sucks. I think he's really good, but he's going to be overowned. Houston's going to be way underowned. In baseball, that matters a lot. So even if I don't fully stack Houston, I want a little bit of exposure for sure. Looks like people would rather go to Arizona than Houston because of the pricing. You've got Darvish expensive, Ohtani cheap. You've got the Astros expensive and the Diamondbacks cheap. So that combination just makes Ohtani and the Diamondbacks much more popular than Darvish and the Astros. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it right now. You don't have to look at it in a box like that. There's plenty other spots to go on the slate, but I do think that that's one way to look at it. Rendon's another guy, crushes lefties. I'm not excited about picking on Valdez, but the Angels lineup is good and in play for sure. J.D. Davis crushes lefties. I think if you're stacking the Mets, he fits right in. And then, if you want a really cheap part of a stack, Miguel Franco, I guess. Overall, though, Arenado in a Cardinal stack, J-Ram stacker one-off. I like Bregman in that Houston stack a lot. Machado's the clear cash game play. Rendon looks like a good pivot in tournaments. And then J.D. Davis, works in that Mets stack. Oh, the other guy I forgot to mention was Bobby Witt. One of the top prospects in baseball. He is hitting second today. So I actually think he probably gets love. Even with Bieber getting love, he'll probably be used with Bieber. Anyone who doesn't use Bieber will use him. I'm going to fade that personally. I'm more on the Bieber side. It scares me a little bit, but I'm not going to use a chalky Witt in the 2-hole, even though I think he's a great play on paper. And if you need it, I completely get it. Third base ownership is going to be interesting. I think Machado and Witt eat a lot of it now. Machado mostly, though. All right, shortstop. No Tatis for a while. So that is something to get used to. As far as ownership goes, Frankie Lindor is the clear chalk here. And I get it. Mets stack, they look good against Corbin. Shortstop kind of sucks here. Ahmed Rosario is kind of the fallback option. So let's see this. Yeah, when he was like in the 2-hole, he was actually doing damage towards the end of last year, but I got no faith in that. Yeah, shortstop stinks here. Kim at 2,600. Honestly, this is. Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that Houston thinks fairly high of. This is the way to get different within the Houston stack also. Stack the bottom of their lineup, maybe a wraparound stack. You better believe I'm going to have that exposure today, like for sure. At least at the slate started right now. I can't confirm anything. We still got a few hours to go, but I like me a little bit of Houston tonight. You can, I think, get different with them, which is always nice when you get a really good lineup and no one's going to be on them. I get it. They're in a tough spot. It's not like they're guaranteed to succeed, but that's why no one's going to play them. All right. So in cash games, I think it's Lindor. I think in shorts, in GPPs, it's kind of whoever you're stacking. Lindor is the obvious choice on paper. All right, outfield. There's always a ton of guys to go over in the outfield. I think Trout plays today, but I'm not positive. You know, if he plays, he's certainly in play because he's awesome and one of the best outfielders ever. Kyle Tucker in the Houston stack I was talking about. Starling Marte, presumably leading off for the Mets, looks good. Juan Soto was way too cheap, so I'm sure he gets love. I bet Juan Soto gets a lot of love. And it makes sense. On paper, he looks awesome here. It makes me like Yordan Alvarez even more. I mean, these Houston guys are just going to be left out of the equation. Carlson's expensive, but if you're stacking St. Louis, he makes sense. Talked about Ketel Marte a little bit. Franmil Reyes, we always know, has monster power upside. Kind of like Mark Kanya. Reyes is higher power upside, but I like the Mets lineup a lot more. So I think these guys are kind of comparable plays tonight. Wow, Nelson Cruz is way too cheap. So he looks like a premier one-off. You can play him with Soto. You can play him without. You can play him in the Washington stack, in a non-stack. He's just he should never be that cheap. David Peralta, coming off a couple good spring games. I don't know. I'm not excited about Arizona, as I mentioned. There are a bunch of cheap guys to look at. Brandon Marsh could potentially be leading off. We'll see. He should be in the lineup. Aquino should be in the lineup. Stephen Kwan should be in the lineup. So we'll have to wait and see when lineups come out. But yeah, as of right now, I think in cash games is pretty simple. Not simple because there's a lot of good plays, but I'd go Bieber. Probably either Ohtani or Wainwright. Maybe it's actually Fried who's getting the most love, then Ohtani. I'll go with Ohtani. I think he's going to be really chalky in cash games. And then for bats, you want a lot of Mets and a lot of Astros. So I think you want to start with Machado. Alonso. Soto. You're less interested in stacking in cash games just because you're not trying to get to like the top of the field. Okay, we'll have to wait and see when lineups come out. You could obviously go Witt instead of Machado if you want to. There's a bunch of pivots you can make. James McCann, a catcher. You guys can kind of figure out the rest. A bunch of different places to go. And then tournaments, anything goes. I'm just excited to get on here and talk baseball. If you guys have any questions, holler at me. Appreciate you guys as always. If you want more content, more videos, more me, go check out the DFS 5-pack. We'd love to have you. And I'll see you tomorrow, guys, for another slate. This video is a free members only video to the public. Tomorrow I'm going to go back to making a members only video and then making a public video as well. So if you want access to more of these type videos, go check out the DFS 5-pack and see y'all tomorrow.